Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thank you for joining us once again here on TalkinFight for another episode featuring Kristian von Sponek out of Boxen247 across the pond. How you doing, Kristian?
Hurried. How are you? You good?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Life is
yeah,
very
no,
good.
it's good to have you back. It's a new year.
Absolutely.
But some things have not changed, and that is this bottleneck we're seeing at the heavyweight division. I thought the last time we talked, we were all set for a Fury versus Dillian Whyte fight, and that has not been confirmed as of today. So,
how are you up with what's going on with it? Because I can. Oh God, do I get myself into trouble with it? I'm not going to say where I got it from, but I know exactly what is happening.
Okay, I had heard that Eddie Hearn was willing to let it go to purse bid tomorrow, which would be Friday. He manages Dillian Whyte, and he wasn't happy, I believe, with the 20% that he was being offered for that fight. Anyway, I'm sure you know more than I, and why don't you let me and the fans know what you've heard?
Well, all it is that I was, how can I put it, the best way of wording it? I was over, I heard that apparently there's no way he was going to be stepping aside. This is Anthony Joshua, absolutely no way he was going to be stepping aside.
Right.
Apparently that the powers to be wanted him to, because it made sense, because it's extra money, Fury and Usyk fights, and then obviously hopefully at that point they wanted AJ to fight the winner, but I hear that is not the case. Now, as far as the WBC and the purse bids, etc., you're right with what you said, because it's been extended twice now. It is extended for the second time yesterday, with the deadline being tomorrow. So with what I heard, you should hear, with what I heard only covers the AJ situation. Now, what's going to happen with Fury and Whyte, whether this is going to be plain sailing with their negotiations, that is obviously, we'll see tomorrow. One question I'm going to ask you, the big thing is with all of this is that, Fury wants the 80-20 split. Now, do you think that is fair? What's your views of this?
Based on what Dillian Whyte made last time out when he fought, I think he made 300,000. I don't know if it's pounds or dollars, but let's just say that's the number. 20% of this fight against Fury would be absolutely monumental compared to that $300,000 or pound figure. Yes. So I do think it's fair for Dillian Whyte to take that 20%. I mean, it looks unfair on paper as we see it, 80-20 split. But let me backtrack. Has AJ accepted the walkaway money?
Not officially. No. The idea is he doesn't want to do it. No. AJ doesn't want to step aside.
And I have heard that Fury doesn't want to fight Usyk. I mean, this is really complicated for me over here.
Supposedly Fury will fight anybody. That's just the general thing. He'll fight anybody. What was the exact words? Anybody, doesn't care who it is, even this weekend.
I think you used the word dosser.
Really? I never heard him use that before. Well, yes, it could be say tosser, but apparently he'll fight anybody, but with what he exactly says, you've got to take with a few pinches of salt anyway. Right. No, apparently management promotional, get it right, we're up for the step aside. This is AJ's side. But apparently AJ flat right just doesn't want it to happen that way. He wants his rematch apparently with Usyk, and that's what I heard today, near enough from the horse's mouth. But as we have seen with the whole of this carnival merry-go-round over the past months, years, whatever, that anything can happen, and anything can happen in 24 hours as well, which is the key thing. I remember writing a post one night. You had Tyson Fury. This was, you know, going ahead with AJ, writing it, and it was a case of he's up for it. He's this, that, and the other. It's happening. There was the accompanying video with it, and then the next day that it wasn't happening. Yeah, anything could happen. So all I can say is, as of this moment, or I'm going to be exact, as of this lunchtime, that's how it plays. I haven't silenced my phone. My inbox is going off with all sorts of stuff. So I could probably end this call with you, and there's all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff happening. Well, I'm going to be late with it, obviously, after this call. But if you need any news for later, if I quickly go through my inbox, I've got everything being thrown over to me. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a good night for boxing today. Tonight, there's going to be some announcements. I mean, I haven't done anything today. Obviously, I've been at the press conference all morning and afternoon. There's lots of Coley one for February 27th. So, yeah. It's it's all interesting. I think I'm seeing things that are flashing up on my phone at the moment. I think Katie Taylor and Serrano's possibly been made. I've had something flash up because I haven't put the not the silence, the thing that stops all the notifications. I've got everything coming up on my screen of the emails, obviously from the promoters. So yeah, it's. I could probably update you going through it after this call we have. Is there anything particular today that you find interesting at the moment? Because you know, boxing's looking good at the moment. We've got some good fights coming up. There really is some good ones. It's been a bit of a pain in the UK, obviously, with January being suspended, but everything's been pushed over. First one in the UK, the big one anyway, is obviously going to be Chris Eubank versus Liam Williams on February the 5th down in Cardiff. Good fight. Obviously on that bill as well, you've got Clarissa Shields versus Emma Kozin. That's full unification, obviously, because it's everything that Savannah Marshall hasn't got, because she's got the WBO, I think it is, and Savannah Marshall's got everything else. But Emma Kozin, the unbeaten girl, she's got the WBF, so even that's been thrown into the pot. Every alphabet belt going in for this one, I think. No, it's good. How do you see everything at the moment?
We've been talking highly of the level of competition that's rising among the female boxers out there. We're really excited by what we are hearing and who we're talking to, and that's only going to improve, I think, this year. And similar to the heavyweight division, I think there's going to be some straightening out in the female world. But well, I'll tell you what is interesting. It is interesting to read the American angle on the heavyweights. If I can just jump back for a second. Because Bob Arum continues to talk of a fight that he wants to have happen between Deontay Wilder and Jared Big Baby Anderson.
Yes.
I mean, that's making news over here.
But it's not going to happen yet, though.
It won't happen. If it happens, it won't happen. I don't think. I don't even think Wilder's going to get back into the ring, quite frankly. But in the meantime, actually, I believe in the meantime, in February, there's another heavyweight fight among two Americans, Sonny Conto and
you reported on that one yesterday.
Mike Marshall. Anyway,
yes.
So I think the Americans are lining up a bevy of new heavyweight prospects, not because North American audiences are sick and tired of the shenanigans going on across the pond, but I think in due time you're gonna see Tyson Fury either step aside or this thing will battle itself out. But a year to go by for the Americans to do nothing is unbelievable, and so that's exactly what is happening. The Americans are slowly moving up their heavyweights, quite frankly, toe to toe. The undefeateds are going toe to toe, and you know, I think guys like Bob Arum are not going to sit still while Eddie Hearn continues to promote Dillian Whyte and AJ, and you know, speak a war of words with. And you know, that whole Dosser thing that I'm talking about came out in a social media comment that Tyson Fury made. You know, I mean, he's sitting there on his soapbox saying he'll take on anyone, but that's not the case. So anyway, so while all that shapes up, it's interesting to see what the Americans are doing, and the Americans are promoting quite heavily some names. And anyway, I just wanted to mention that it seems like whenever I go to the American side of things, they're talking about a different group of names than when I go over across the pond and I see what the English are talking about, for example. So I just want to mention that before we, talked about other people.
Yeah, the thing over here in the UK, which is very interesting, I was having a look through this last night, is the promotional change that's happening. Obviously, you had Boxer come along, took over, obviously on Sky Sports. They're doing very well. You've had Probellum. I mean, the roster of fighters which they've got now is huge. You know, I never would have thought. If somebody would have said, is there room for another big promoter to come along? Absolutely. And give them a bit of time. They're going to be right up there. I think you're going to have Boxer, Matchroom, and Probellum. They're leading the top three, and then it'd be second tier, as it appears. Frank Warren. Obviously MTK with the shows, it's and Mick Hennessy as well. It's weird. I never would have thought. They've managed to sign a lot of people, and it's good to see Florian Marku is going to be fighting again soon. He's moved over to Boxer. I just mentioned Florian because he's one of my favourite fighters. It's good to see. There's going to be an announcement with him. I've just seen Natasha Jonas WBO title fights. This has been added to. I can't read it. It says come up as an email. Added to Khan Brooks. So that's going to be obviously. Sorry, it's covering the screen. Yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of news there. If you're taking the news later on from the thing, I can go through anything later with you if needed. There's a lot. So that's going to be me to the early hours, typing away.
But if you want to talk about peculiar or funny in the world of boxing, I find it's both peculiar and funny to see Don King's name back into the mix. So there's another fella that won't go away.
What is Don King now? He's 90.
Yeah, exactly.
3, I think it is, or something. Yes, it's was it Trevor Bryan versus what's the chap's name?
Jonathan Guidry.
Yeah.
So Trevor's out of Florida, and Jonathan Guidry's out. I think he's out of Louisiana. But anyway,
that's a funny one. That is because where's Manuel Char or Mahmoud Char in all of this? He was meant to be the in Recess or Demetrius or whatever. All that stuff where he was frozen out by Don King and everything with that merry-go-round situation. This is back to the heavyweights, but this is the heavyweight championship, but it's not anything that we were talking about earlier. This is obviously WBA regular. It's.
But it goes back to what I was saying earlier about what the Americans are promoting, and I mean, to take aside Don King, put him out of the equation for one brief moment. Trevor Bryan, his record he's undefeated, and Jonathan Guidry, he's undefeated as well. So you're seeing names like that being bandied about more than the fighters' names, because there seems to be such a stalemate over in Great Britain right now. I mean,
it is.
as far as we can tell.
It's we when we last spoke. We were going to obviously talking about the aftermath and the merry-go-round and the whole situation. And obviously after Fury versus Wilder, it's pretty much sort of, I mean, I can't remember what it was when we last spoke, but it hasn't changed really. It's just no different. It's, what is going on? We should know more tomorrow. But then again, the deadline was the deadline the other day, and it's been extended twice by the WBC. And this is the final one, apparently. So the final, yeah, there we are. What are they going to settle at? Don't know. Okay, I think the fight's going to happen. I reckon it'll be Fury White. Let's talk about who will win and why.
I think, okay, let's say it was happening, and let's say it was happening tonight. I would pick Dillian White. I would think he's in better shape. I would think he's more hungry. And he does have that knockout power. And Tyson Fury has demonstrated that he can get hit and go down. And if he's vulnerable, yeah, but he does get up.
And
yes,
he recovers.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So anyway, that's my 2 cents. You know, as I've said before, I'm not a betting man, but if that fight were taking place today and we were talking about it, I would put my money on Dillian White.
Okay, so here's the situation then. We've got, in your opinion, White will beat Fury. Now, rematch then. So let's see how this will plays out in this situation. Okay, so it looks like AJ, it appears, it will be taking the rematch with Usyk. Who will win that?
The last time those two fought, I picked AJ simply because of his reach, and I thought his reach would be better than the inside punching power of Usyk. I was wrong. And what's kind of peculiar about the AJ situation is he still, to my knowledge, he still hasn't named his trainer.
There is. I can't remember the chap's name.
Okay.
Sorry, it's not official, but it appears. I can't remember his name that has settled. Anyway, sorry, back with.
But I think the trainer that he selects and the team that he selects to train him will take that now into consideration. So I think this rematch, will be won by AJ this time around. That's my 2 cents going into that match, if it happens.
Okay, so AJ then against White. Oh, rematch then. Who do you think then?
That would be a heck of a fight, because both at that point would have an awful lot to prove in terms of just the pure heavyweight championship and the legacy that goes with it. That would be a fight to the ages, I think, if they could both do what I've just said, what I thought would happen. If that happens, that would be a hell of a fight. And at this stage, I couldn't pick a winner, but I might go with White again. If I was to go out on a limb and say, you know what, he's a big, powerful boy, and AJ, he's demonstrated he can lose. He is vulnerable. So if he's vulnerable, does that put White in a better position? Well, as I say, it depends how he fares against Fury first and foremost. But if he does fare well against Fury, if I were Anthony Joshua, I'd look out.
Okay, my world says Fury beats White points. I still think Usyk will beat AJ. I think there's more. I think AJ will come in improved, but I think Usyk will come in improved. The more time and the longer the delay, again, Usyk will be more. His body will be more accustomed to being heavyweight. And I think that was one of the differences why Usyk appeared to be a lot better in the AJ fight compared to the Chisora fight. Because after the Chisora fight, he didn't appear to have done too well, and that's why most people picked AJ. But I just think that he came in and he was more of a heavyweight because there was 11-month gap between the Chisora fight and AJ. I think there's more from Usyk as a heavyweight. With that in mind, I think Usyk will then go through to the Fury fight, and that is the one that I really cannot pick a winner. I'm, being Usyk fan, Fury fan, like both. But who will win? I can only say Fury. I just think, that's the one that I have a problem winning. And I like to usually be vocal with who's going to win and whatever, whether it's right or wrong. But that one, I just really scratch on my head.
The question mark I have with Fury is the way he treats his body between fights, and I'm not so sure that the human body can go through those ups and downs, right? And remain in tip-top shape for these upcoming battles. I mean, I just can't see it, and that's why I have my doubt when we do talk about Fury going up against because Dillian White, I don't know. Like he's a big boy. He's not to be taken any less seriously than anyone else. But I just think he's going to go in there with an awful lot to prove, and I just don't think Fury's taking him as seriously as he should.
I just think that you're not going to knock out Fury if Wilder can't. Then White can't. I mean, heavyweight boxing or boxing in general, obviously anything can happen, but I just don't think it'll happen on night. And I just think maybe a sloppy points decision because of maybe Fury not on his A game because of the reasons you said. You know, it's going to be one of those situations very much like Ricky Hatton. You cannot, you know, become big in between fights, lose all that weight, and expect to be the same in a fight, especially as you get older. You cannot do it.
Right.
Won't happen. And so his body will give at some point and won't get up from a punch, but I just don't think it'll be the next one. I think he's got a couple of fights left in it based on exactly what you said with the way he's treating his body. It's but I think the more I talk about it, the more I think Usyk, I just think he's the one that is completely on his game in every area. He was professional in every area. The only thing that's just not going for him is not a big punching heavyweight. Not that you have to be, because he's a career-long cruiserweight. Apart from that, I just think every area with him is a tick. And with that in mind, you know, you've got somebody there that's on the game, will be 100% fit, will be 100% everything. Like using your examples, you know, he will be completely focused, will be completely everything, where Fury won't be. And that's where the doubt comes into my mind over, you know, if I was pushed, I'd have to say Usyk, but I'm still, you know, if it's a 49-51, I think a good Usyk will, possibly be close with a bad Fury, if I look at it that way. I still say, and I swear blind to, that the Fury that beats Klitschko back then, that was him at his best, masterful boxer. How can you beat somebody that is 6'9", and boxes like that?
Right.
The Fury now is heavier, and I don't think that's not just by choice as well, because look at the midriff that was on him in that last fight. And that's why I think that had a lot to do with why the third fight with Wilder and Fury was a lot closer as such, and wasn't a walkover for Fury like it was in the second fight. A lot was it to do with that. An interesting thing that I watched yesterday, and I know it's stating the obvious and knew it anyway, but it was just so much more apparent. I had playing in the background, I had, you know, sort of like a lot of Wilder fights. It just came on, I just didn't turn it off. And I just noticed the speed was completely different prior back then. That wasn't the case in the second or the third fight. Yeah, he did well. He was gutsy in that third fight, but the speed just wasn't there. Nothing. And it's that speed that I don't think he was punching at full power. I know people are going to be, what? In that third fight, because the speed wasn't there. Yeah, he was more muscled. He was, you know, he did quite well. He was jabbing in that first round and still obviously had power there to put Fury down. But that's not the Fury, not the Wilder that we've been accustomed to.
Right.
The speed isn't there. And that's, you know, he's not a heavy-handed, heavy puncher. You know, it's speed that's one of his attributes that makes him such a hard puncher, and that speed's not there. And that's since moving up in weight. I still think that, and obviously it's an obvious thing that you put on weight because you're fighting a big man like Fury, but I do think, you know, it was, you know, apparent in the second fight, unless you take the costume into consideration or being drugged or anything else, but it was apparent in the second fight and the third fight as well that he was slower. It didn't work for him. He should not lose too much weight, because it's not good as a heavyweight, losing weight at the end of your career. We spoke about that before, in my opinion. But he should just train and not particularly come in heavy if he fights again. He should just train and just come in whatever his body allows him to do so. But love to see him return, because I think he's got more to give. You know, that's 2 defeats. It's 2 hard defeats, but when he hasn't been battered in fights before,
right?
You know, there isn't high mileage, and he's not that old. So, what else is happening? Heavyweight wise, top tier, you had Joseph Parker versus Chisora. The fallout after that was people shouting for Chisora to retire. What do you make of that? Do you think he should?
Just based on what we've been talking about, I would argue now is not the time to retire because there's an awful, well, I would argue there's an awful lot that could happen.
He could stand up. He would just have to go to the corner so he could actually remain up.
Okay, as we've often said, anything can happen in sport, and does often happen. That surprises an awful lot of us. So I'm just the only reason I'm saying that is because it's better for him to not announce a retirement now, because so much can change in the next three months in the whole boxing landscape. If it quite frankly also depends how wealthy he is, and what his
loads.
He's got loads.
Loads,
he's got loads.
Yes. No, he hasn't been frivolous with it. He's one that's retained it.
No,
I just think that every fighter has that one last fight in them, and I think that was his. People were calling him for him to retire way before that. No, he was doing well. Yes, he was losing, but he was always competitive, so there wasn't a problem. But I think that was the last good fight. Now would be the time. That was you couldn't stand up, poor chap.
That's not a bad
good viewing.
It's not a bad viewpoint from your perspective. I'm just saying, from the competitive landscape that's out there right now, is there room for someone like a Derek Chisora to move into that mix? I would argue yes.
The problem is he won't get paid the money he's used to if he drops down being a gatekeeper or whatever,
right,
which pretty much he's nearly become. He's verging on that, just as the gatekeeper. But that's when the money side of it will, I think, for him become an issue, because he's used to be paying big sums of money for pay-per-view events, and that won't be the case. So,
right. And
what else is there? Charles Martin also. You had the fight. What was that? That was that was January the 1st, wasn't it? January the 1st, I think it was. Charles Martin versus Luis Ortiz. Did you see it?
Yes. I believe I did not see that. But if I'm not mistaken, that was featured by Mike, and I'm pretty sure it was on Knockout of the Week. I'm pretty sure. But anyway, you've caught me off guard there. So go ahead, tell me about it. Tell me your thoughts, please.
Well, no, to me, just the overall impression of the fight was that Ortiz looked awfully unsteady, unbalanced. I mean, he finished off, Williams very well. But he was looking a little bit old in that fight until getting his own way. I think that's somebody that's he's going to have, the next fight he's going to go in with a top guy. He's got to have a cash out fight. And I think he really is waiting for a cash out fight. I think you'll see him with somebody like Joseph Parker or something next. I think that's what you see. But I think he's going to come apart. He looked, there's always that question mark over Luis Ortiz about how old he exactly is, whether it be 41, 51, whatever. But no, he was looking very, very, to me, unsteady. It's the only general word I can give it. I thought Martin was going to win that. But he was decked a couple of times. You could say that Charles Martin is a relatively hard puncher, but it's the way he was reacting to some of the punches when it wasn't even in the hard ones. It was just the general. If you watch it, the early rounds, you will see what I mean. It just looked shaky, unsteady, just not how he should be. In short, he looked old. I think he'll end up having a cash out fight, and he will come apart if it's anybody that's any good. What else is going on? You had the Tony Yoka fight, which was heavyweight, which was cancelled. Now Tony Yoka is agreed to fight the unbeaten chap.
He was ready to fight Kambosos. Hrgovic, right? But wasn't that disallowed because he couldn't? He was still retained by the IBF or something like that.
Well, there was the confusion with the fight, and that's why I said definitely not happening. Is that it was the who is it that's held into a supposed, oh God, there was something that he might have to not fight him and have to face somebody else because of. It'll come to me in a moment. There was something with something to do with something like because of one of them had agreed a fight before. Was it Bakoli that was going to be fighting Yoka? And because of the agreement or something, they're trying to force the fight because it was agreed before moving over to the Hrgović fight. It's something like that.
Yeah.
It's a shame, but it's because that was going to be good. But then again, even with Bakoli, that'd be a good fight. But absolutely. I think you're going to find now, because we've spoken at great length about what happens to all these, the rest of them out of that top four of the heavyweights. What's going to happen. I think now you're going to see a lot of them actually facing off. I think they've got the choice. Because the problem you have is that you've got the two people with AJ. You've got AJ fighting Usyk, and you've got Fury fighting White, supposedly. Then you've got the winner of those two respective fight in a unification. I'm sure with one of those there'd be rematch clause in that. So we're then moving into 2023. What happens to all the mandatories, to all those belts? Yeah. Exactly. So unless you're going to fight nobodies, what I'm trying to get at here is the rest. One of the rest of the, you can't say Fab Five. I don't know what to call them a Fab Four at the moment. Whatever. That four that's sitting at the top, that could be tied in with rematch clauses, because obviously Eddie Hearn with obviously AJ and White. It's ridiculous. Then the mandatories and anything else. If the mandatories are going to get a look in, they're not going to get a look in until possibly 2024 with all of this.
Right.
It's it's and that's 2024, and that's the mandatories. The rest of them have got to start fighting each other, and there's going to be some good fights, I think, involving Joseph Parker. He doesn't mind. It appears to be fighting, the good guys. He's fought Chisora, he's fought White. I think you'll see him in some good fights. And I think they're going to be facing off. I think you're going to see fighters like, for example, Hrgović, Yoka, that have been taking it easy. They claim not being able to get the fights, but regardless of the reason, I think you're going to see that a lot of good fights at heavyweight are going to take place between the leading contenders. That is going to happen for once. It's needed, but I think they've got no choice. Because
that's good.
Okay, so right, let's say that whoever fights, let's go back to this Fab Four thing with the guys at the top. Right, you've got a fight that will happen. Whoever fights whoever, that's going to be, because it's going to be a big fight. That's going to be a summer blockbuster. Right, and then you've got the other fight as well. Let's say that happens December. So they fight off unification. You're looking 2023, probably looking at May, June as well. Rematch clause going into 2024. But what happens to the mandatories? God, if I was I was about to say, if I was the manager of XYZ, whoever the mandatories is, and they're not getting their fight, I'd be going mad. But it's a very difficult situation. It's not as easy as that. I hear people saying that it's not as easy as that with all the politics and how it all works. No way. I just think they've got to fight.
Yeah.
Suck it and see. The only one, I think what's going to happen next with the WBA regular is that assuming Trevor Bryan does win, I think he'll be facing UK guy. Jeepers. This is the man that's off the drugs and got a clear head. Not Daniel Dubois. I think he'll be facing the winner. That was good. I was hoping Daniel Dubois was going to be actually fighting Trevor Bryan. I thought that was going to happen. It didn't. So that should happen, unless you get any issue from Manuel Char and all that legal situation, blah, 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 with all of that. I think you find Daniel Dubois be the next in line. which I think will be a Daniel Dubois win. So I think you'll find then that WBA regular belt is going to be an active belt for the rest, because that opens up rematches with Joe Joyce, all sorts of stuff.
Huh.
Do excuse my ever-moving camera because I'm not properly set up. I've got dog pulling charger cable here, and yeah.
Right on. Hey,
just needed a bit of attention because she's not had me around today. So
that's all right. Let's switch divisions, and maybe we've been talking for a while here about the heavyweights. Hey,
okay, what do you think?
No,
Cruiserweight. Let's go down to there. Cruiserweight.
Well, I wanted before we go, I wanted your opinion on the Amir Khan and Kell Brook fight coming up.
Okay, what's your opinion first?
I'm going to pick Kell Brook. I'm not so convinced that Amir Khan can come back, and I believe he's known for having a glass chin.
Really?
Anyway,
what gives you that impression?
Just from what I've read, merely what I've read. But no, I'm looking forward to that fight. That should be a good one. I was surprised. Speaking about what I read, I was surprised to hear that it sold out in something like 10 minutes. Like,
yes,
I didn't.
Very quick.
Wow. Because I actually didn't think that those two fighters would have that drawing power. But good on them.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame it didn't happen, say, 6-7 years ago. If it would have happened back then, I think personally, Brook would have had a little bit too much for Khan. He is that little bit more sturdier. He sort of ticks the boxes in I think most of them. Brook does, unless Amir Khan could have boxed and kept out the way for 12 rounds. But now, with it being a situation of who's got what left, which it really is a case of, I initially thought Brook would have won this, but I do think with the facial damage which Kell Brook has got, I think if Khan could stay away for a period of time, land enough hard punches in that period of time, I think you're going to get some kind of pull out or something from Brook, because I think, it's, for example, when Brook fought Crawford in his last fight, he was actually doing quite well until he got hit. And the way he got hit in the head, obviously, with that situation with his fractured eye socket, with the brace that's been fitted there, it's as if the eye socket got hit, bang, and that was it, end of the fight. The reaction to it was bad. And I just think it's not going to quite happen maybe in that way, but I think you'll find that my prediction for that is Amir Khan with a injury victory.
Fair enough.
Unless Khan gets caught, which, because Kell Brook did look good against Crawford. It's a shame about the eye socket because he was doing very well against him. And it's in a way, it's quite easy for me to gauge who's got what and how it can be, because of their both last fight was against Crawford, both of them. So, and to me, Brook was doing better against Crawford than Khan did. Khan just seemed all out of sorts from the opening bell. But I just think with that damage, with the way that Crawford fight finished, I think that is going to be the writing on the wall. I think with that fight with who wins. It's Do
you think we'll see Crawford go up against Spence?
I'd love to see it. Something tells me no. The money's going to be there. The public demand for it is certainly there. There's something that, I don't know, Spence possibly going to be moving up, but then there's been talks of Crawford moving up, which would be a shame if he left the division, because Josh Taylor, after his fight with Jack Catterall, is more likely going to be moving up after that, and his eye is on Crawford. I just think that for some reason I just can't see it happening. There's going to be some stumbling block. It's a gut feeling. It's going to be a fight that so many people want for the obvious reason, but I just don't think it's going to happen. whether it be promotional, or it's just going to be one of those fights, one of those good fights that would never happen, or it happened in 6 and 7 years' time, like Brooke and Cole. Maybe not, but I just think it'd be one of those good fights you'll never see, which is a shame. But if Josh Taylor moves up a division, that'd be a good fight, because Josh Taylor is obviously on fire. What a fighter he is. It's a shame for Jack Catterall, because he's a good fighter, but you've got somebody there that's this is a B- fighter against an A+ fighter. It's Catterall's good, he's but there's nothing there at all. He's got nothing in his game, or physically, or any way. There's nothing. He's got an advantage. Taylor, with that fight, has just got every single advantage, and that's just it's a shame. I had a good chat with Catterall at the press conference, and really nice chap. Josh Taylor is, but I just think that's a foregone conclusion, which is a shame. On paper, both undefeated, but it's a good fighter against a great fighter. But back to Crawford, I think that would be how I see the immediate future, big fights with Crawford. I think he'll end up going against Taylor. Taylor move up. Next division.
Oh, before I sidetrack you, we were going to have a chit chat about the cruisers. I mean, other than what's his name, Brandy's getting that tattoo because he wanted to fight Jake Paul. Other than that,
that rubbed off. Yeah.
Other than that, what do we got? We got Lawrence Okoli.
He's up against the Polish guy on the 27th. That would be a good fight.
Is that a unification fight?
No, Mikhail Sishlak, always get his name wrong. He's lost once. Polish has lost once to Ilonga Makabu, and that was on points. Very good fight. Seems really up for that. I've got an interview with him. I must get that put up. I'll probably do that one tomorrow, because I've got an interview with a few fighters from today. But he's really up for this. It was a good fight with Makabu. That would be a good one, because Okoli's last fight was a bit of an easy walkover. Okoli's looking good. He was, first off, he was very to me, he was very hot and cold with his performances, but now he's on a good streak since becoming champion. But I think you'll see him move up in weight. I think he'll join the heavyweights eventually. He's got the frame for it. I think there's talk of him long-term moving up. Now, with the cruiserweights, it's the reason why I wanted to talk about it, because it brings in a good name, or the biggest name. Because you've got Ilonga Makabu fighting, obviously, this Saturday. Assuming he retains, which he should do. He won the first match with the other chap. Obviously, you've got Canelo, where it's verbally agreed between the fighters, and the WBC have given the green light for him to move up and cherry pick. I didn't say that. To challenge Makabu, which I mean, how do you see that?
I like Canelo a lot, and I'll support him. I would pick him. If he's going to move up and he's going to challenge Makabu, great, go for it. But I would pick Canelo. He's a really strong fighter. He's really tough, and I really like his personality as well. So, on both sides of the fence, in and outside the ring, I like Canelo.
It's just a shame that a lot of people have been bashing him, me included, for saying that he does cherry pick his opponents. Yes, he does, and people are really laying into him with that. Okay, but I do draw a line, because at the end of the day, yes, he cherry picks his opponents, but he's not the first one to do this. You had go back to 19, 88, Sugar Ray Leonard, when he fought Donny Lalonde. You know, he was fighting Donny Lalonde, who was the light heavyweight champion, but you know, he picked him for a reason, because he thought he could beat him. He even dragged him down to catchweight, because that fight was at catchweight between super middle and light heavy, with both the super middle and the light heavyweight belts, which are on the line. But Sugar Ray did it. You know, he picked Hagler at the right moment. You know, that fight could have been made earlier. You know, they've all been at it, and people talk about Canelo cherry picking like it's never happened before. No, it does happen. I mean, you can even accuse Mayweather, as much as his resume is absolutely about the best you can get. You know, he even picked off Canelo at the right time, because that would have been a better fight had, you know, Canelo been a little bit older. He picked him at the right time before he was, you know, an A+ fighter, for example. It's nothing new, but it's just a shame, because there's other fights out there at the weights he's been in, and it's very, very, very blatant with what he's doing. And I think personally, that's going to tarnish what could be the best ever legacy, maybe better than Mayweather's, I think. But it's going to be, you know, tainted by the extreme cherry picking which he's doing. You know, he's not fighting boxers, fighters that will move. It was after, God, I'd have to bring up the record of Canelo. He fought, God, who was it? Talk about another day. There was a fighter he fought, and it was a hard fight because the guy was a mover. And ever since then, he's kept away from anybody that can box. And that's why you will see that the majority of the fighters that Canelo has fought are, I'm not going down a racial lane, you'll see what I mean in a moment, have been majority white Europeans. Fighters that will stand up, if you go through his record, white Europeans that stand up and fight, that will give him a fight, because Canelo is strong, he's like a little bull, and he's so effective against those fighters. And the time that Canelo will lose will be over points against a boxer. But you go through, if you go through his record later and see, it was with the exception of one, since I think you can even say since Mayweather, I think with the exception of one or two maybe since Mayweather, they've all been white European. Okay, you could say that Plant wasn't European, but he was white. He was, check it out later and you will see, because they stand and fight, and he likes a fight that he will win against a fighter.
Well, this is timely, because hasn't Eddie Hearn stepped into this ring? Hasn't he offered several fighters to go? He's offered Triple G. He's offered, I don't know if he's offered Jermell Charlo. But there are some fighters' names now. And what about another guy, Bivol? Bivol's name has entered the ring.
Absolutely. See, Bivol will stand there and fight. These fighters that he's interested in. Bivol is more of a boxer, but again, I know he's world champion. You can't say he's not good, but he's one of the weaker champions. You know, okay, one of those situations with Canelo, when he fought Crusher Kovalev. You know, Kovalev was at the end of his career, and that fight was a real short period after the fight when he nearly lost to Anthony Yard. That was completely cherry-picked for that reason. The turnaround, I can't remember what the gap was in between the two fights, but it was very, very short. You know, the Makabu fight, Makabu was knocked out in 2 by Tony Bellew. You know, he's beatable, he could be knocked out, and he stands and fights. That's why Makabu has been zeroed in on. Yes, it's good that at the end of the day, Canelo turned pro as a light middleweight and going to span, probably be a champion at cruiserweight, but you won't see him defend it. You know, you won't see, he hasn't done many mandatories where, you know, the governing body's gone, you've got to fight this person. It's been who he wants to fight, to the extreme of, if you remember, he fought Avni Yildirim so many fights ago. He actually asked the WBC, whatever, if that could be the next fight. You actually ask them, can you put him in as mandatory? So I have to defend against him. So it can't be looked at that, oh, another weak opponent that was picked upon, because it was a weak opponent. No disrespect, because it takes, such and such to get into the ring, etc. But we're just talking about it because of that's the way it is. He is a weaker fighter in this top tier professional game. Anthony Udo, no disrespect. He was knocked out in, 3 rounds or something by Chris Eubank. But he actually asked the WBC to install him as the mandatory. Crazy.
Wow. Well, you're bursting my Canelo bubble here.
Sorry, but do go through the record later on. It's not, I could say he only fights white fighters. It's not quite like that. It's near enough, but white European, because the stereotypical stand up, they're not movers. Go through the record later on, and you will see what I mean.
All right. So you think he'd have trouble then with Jermall Charlo type fighter?
Yes. A box fighter, or the more the person will box. Okay, somebody could argue that, hold on a second, Billy Joe Saunders was a boxer. Well, Billy Joe Saunders wasn't very effective at super middleweight ever since he moved from middleweight. He hadn't done particularly very well. He wasn't the same. Again, there was a reason why Canelo, fought him. But even, Billy Joe Saunders in a division he wasn't particularly effective at, did have some good success in that fight. But that's as much as a boxer that you will get. He will struggle with somebody, and he will get. That's what he struggles with. Go through the record, you will see what I mean.
Let's come full circle, because we're running out of time here. Let's come full circle then. Who do you got in this Chris Eubank Jr. fight then?
Sorry,
you Williams? Chris Eubank Jr. and Williams. Who you got there?
Eubank. Yeah. I think it'll be a good fight.
Yeah.
Problem with Eubank is that he love him as a guy. Why people hate on the chap, I really don't know. Really like him. Loved his dad. I always get the impression from Eubank there's more to come, or he's got a 5th gear, but he only uses 3 of them. Don't know why, and I think that will be a question that is going to still linger there after he retires. I think there is a brilliant fight left in him. Not left in him, but I think there's a real good performance within him. For example, if you did match him up with somebody like Triple G, as much as Triple G's at the end of his career, blah, 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 the rest of it's there for the taking. I think if he wouldn't be, I don't think, and I highly rate GGG, very much so. But you could put Chris Eubank in with somebody like that, and I think that's the kind of fighter that would spring the upset. Back to against Williams. Williams is a good fighter. But he is a middle moving up, not as effective. Yes, he did it. He did quite well against it. There's a gutsy performance against last fight, the WBO challenge. So my brain's frazzled today. Andre. But Eubank should nick it on points. There's nothing to say stoppage. Even past couple of fights, Eubank's not seemed. I don't know. The better the opponent, I think very much so. The better the opposition, the better you will see Eubank. There's no miles on the clock. There is, and my little crystal ball out that we speak about with our crystal balls. I think you're going to see him at some point in a top fight. With a supposed top fighter, and I think you will see him victorious, and he's going to shut up a lot of people. I do think there's something within him, but for whatever reason, he doesn't show it. It's frustrating at times.
Well, we definitely have some really good fights coming up. That's for sure. I mean, so are they? I'm guessing the COVID restrictions are being eased up over there in the UK.
Well, it's a funny thing. It's the reason why it was suspended in January, when no other sport, as far as I heard, was not that I do follow any other sports, was suspended, was to ease the paramedic staff.
Right.
because of the threat with how busy it is, etc. That was the reason that was given from the British Boxing Board of Control. And that's it. February, it's all back to normal. Hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood. All the rest of it. UK, it's looking good. You know, it's other countries which are not doing so well at the moment, which is a shame. Which countries are doing bad at the moment with Omicron? Is it New Zealand's one of them? Is Australia as well? Regardless, it's a shame. But UK over here, it's it's improving. It appears to be over the hill, but things are being eased off. The restrictions over here have eased off. So because I thought it was going to be cancelled again, but that was already cancelled twice. The Chris Eubank fight.
Right.
But yes, it's going to be nearly it for you, isn't it?
Yep.
So, with that said, I can carry on. But if you need to go, we can.
Yeah, no. We can pick this up again next week because we'll have some results in and we'll have some updates.
Absolutely, there's a lot happening as we moving into February, and people are now confident because of those promoters didn't want to put everything down on the table because of the uncertainty that was happening over here. Now that it appears to be February's fine, we're over that peak. It's now bang, 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 bang. And you're going to see on the website later, there's going to be a lot of updates. There's a lot. I've seen stuff flashing up on the phone. God, I've got a lot of work to do tonight. It's that's my fault for going to a press conference, but hey ho. It's good. Boxing is back, certainly in the UK, worldwide.
As you were mentioning on your own website, it's good to see fights around the world, especially in Africa. I'm seeing more and more action. There's one
Nigeria as well, and there's
Tanzania. So this is good for boxing. This is good for boxing.
Yeah, no, it's looking good. It's anyone that says that boxing is dead. I've heard too much of that. Well, look, if you look at how much the top tier boxers are being paid compared to UFC, it's no comparison. No comparison. The money is still there, very much there. You do get peaks and troughs. It's not quite like how it was popularity, wise, like it was in the 90s. But any sport, anything in life is up and down. Yeah, but I think it's on the way up, or it's not particularly on the way down for it to go up. No, the money's there. What's the problem? I don't get it when people go, "Oh, UFC." Don't mind watching it, but the money's in boxing.
Well,
how much did Francis, what's his name, Ngannou, or the top guy that won? Was he paid something up so many 100,000? And what is the top heavyweight champ in boxing? Yeah.
Wow.
So anyone that says boxing's dead, no.
No, it's all good, quite frankly, and it's interesting to see Jake Paul investing in UFC and to make sure that those poor
You've frozen. I don't know if it's me or you.
invested in UFC and to make sure that the UFC fighters get their just due. If in fact it wasn't, I apologize, but
you're back.
I'm back. Okay, I was just mentioning that Jake Paul's invested in UFC and that the fighters get their just due. But even with his input, as has been proven, that it won't be enough, I don't think. So, meanwhile, boxing moves forward and is entering a great phase. I think 2022 is going to be a fantastic year. I'm looking forward to all these fights we've talked about today, and the many more that you're about to unload on us.
Yeah, well, next week when we speak, I'll be normal setup. I'll be not just coming through the front door with not knowing at all what's gone on in the day. It's all coming through now. I've got to go through it all. We'll have a better chat instead of just
that's awesome.
Off the cuff one. So yes. So until next week, I'll speak to you before then. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks very much. And Talkin Fight fans, thanks very much for joining us. And remember to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next week, Kristian.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.